Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Kinnear, and today we are talking about all those parts of ourselves, those feelings, those emotions, those parts of ourselves that we just want to ignore, we want to get rid of, we want to be like, it's not here. And yet, first of all, can we get rid of them? That's one question. And second of all, do we actually want to get rid of it? I give talks all the time about overcoming imposter syndrome. And one of the things that I love to do is kind of call out our inner critic and bring it a little bit more to life so that we can identify it, because oftentimes our inner critic is just running in the background. It's the thing that we're saying to ourselves, like, wow, that was stupid. Wow, you're really not good at that. Wow, you're probably going to get fired, right? Like, that's our inner critic running its mouth kind of in the background of our minds and psyches. And what often happens when I talk about this is there's almost always a question. Somebody's like, how do I get rid of it? Like, I want to get rid of it. Or when I'm coaching people, they're like, I just want to get rid of my inner critic. And I get it. I get that we want to, it's unpleasant. It's unpleasant to be around. And yet the inner critic, if we are facing with a decision of, do we get rid of the inner critic or do we keep the inner critic? That's not a very helpful question. First of all, it's not helpful because you can't ever really get rid of it. That's one thing. And the second thing is so because you can't ever get rid of it, when we push against it, it actually makes it a bit stronger. It can embolden that part of ourselves to be like, wow, you can't even shut me up. How are you even going to show up at work, right? Like, we can create more troubles for ourselves. So there's a shift that I would like to invite, which is, how can we, instead of get rid of our inner critic, get rid of our self-doubt, get rid of our fear and anxiety, rather, how can we turn toward it? How can we befriend it? How can we send it lots and lots of love? Because those parts of ourselves tend to be afraid. They tend to be a younger part of ourselves. They tend to be a protective part of ourselves. So how can we just change our relationship, instead of like, go away, to rather, come here, honey? I was having a coaching session myself with my coach, dear Marie Johnson. If any of you know Marie, she's amazing. And I was talking to her about this impending doom that I'm just recognizing that when I'm about to step into something big, when I'm about to create something big, there's this sense of impending doom that is like along for the ride. And when I push away against it, it gets bigger. And and recently I just had some big things happen, and I was able to be like, oh, hi, impending doom. Yes, you're always here. Like, come on in, let's go for the ride, but you are not allowed to steer. I'm not going to push against you, but I get it. You're here. And sending lots of love to myself. And one of the things Marie said is, she said, I believe that all of these feelings, the impending doom, the self-doubt, the fear, the anxiety, the inner critic, all of them, they're like spices on a spice rack. Think about that. They are like spices on a spice rack, and you need all the spices. But you want to make sure, like, for some of them, a little goes a long way. You want to make sure it doesn't overpower the dish. But without that spice, the dish wouldn't shine the way it needs to. And it brought me back to a time when I took a stand-up comedy class, and our wonderful instructor, Peter Gray, said, the day that we were actually like in front of the audience doing our stand-up routine, he said, it's okay that you have a little bit of fear. Like, a little bit of fear is actually a good thing. It keeps you on point. It keeps you alert. It keeps you in that like good stress zone. And he's like, but if you get too much of it, Like you got to you got to watch for that. Like make sure it's not too much. And that's what I think about when it comes to self-doubt. Self-doubt is like, that's where our self-reflective skills are. That's where we like pause and go, is that all right? We want to have some of that. We don't want it to take over though, where we're second guessing everything that we're doing. We want to have a little bit of fear, that healthy fear that keeps us alert and aware and like on point, but not too much where it's debilitating. We want to make sure that our inner critic is that part of ourselves, that protective side of us. That is in fear, that is aware and hyper alert to everything, and is trying to help you see things from another point of view. That's what the inner critic can do if used well. If it's just a little touch. As Marie said, it's like nutmeg. Like nutmeg, a little goes a long way, but you don't want a lot of it in the dish. But just a little touch of nutmeg can make for some interesting flavors. This is the work. When you are trying to push against a part of yourself, when you're trying to disown a part of yourself, when you're trying to say, go away to a part of yourself, then you can inadvertently be making the situation harder for yourself. There's something, you think about a child crying or in distress and you're like, go away. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear you. That's really different than going, honey, come here. I know this is hard. Come here. This is how we care for ourselves, is by doing that. By turning our self-doubt, turning our inner critic, turning our fear, turning our anxiety and going, come here. Let's have a little heart-to-heart. What's going on? And then making sure that it's just a little bit helps. We don't want to get rid of it altogether. We need that spice in our spice rack. And if you are someone who perhaps has a little too much nutmeg in your life, a little too much fear, a little too much self-doubt, a little too much anxiety, a little overactive inner critic, that's the work that I do. So reach out. Wishing you a wonderful week. I hope your spice rack is full and abundant and in just the right quantity in your life. See you next week.